Hi, I'm Gianna, and Caitlin is not here today, but I'm reading A Dog's Life, or we are reading A Dog's Life. So today, my question is going to be, do you think that Moon and Squirrel are ever going to get caught by the van? And my question, right now I am on page 111, and the chapter I'm in is a chapter called Moon. Like the dog moon, not just moon in the sky. Well, I'm assuming. And I'm a little nervous because when...
If they get caught, they're in trouble. Sometimes they never get caught.
Oops, the water bottle spilled. But because when a chapter is named the name of somebody, it typically doesn't mean something good, but something great is happening, especially in this type of story right now, like how it's been going. So, Moon and Squirrel had been like walking till they got to a place called Nassau Street. It's kind of like a town that Marcy and George had lived in. And basically,
no, that's not against the law. I mean, if they jaywalk, that's against the law. If they told you to jaywalk, it's not against the law.
I'm trying to read, sorry. Yeah, these two women had been feeding a couple, like, wild dogs that had been just kind of like Moon and Squirrel. They had been feeding them, so, like, they'd been taking out tins and putting some dog food and hamburgers in there and stuff. We talked about that in the last video, but basically now, after they feed them, they don't wait a little bit anymore, they just feed it and then they leave, because there's this dark van that pulls up, and it's, we kind of made an inference last time that it was like a kind of somebody who catches dogs, kind of like the Pound, basically, and the Pound, it is the Pound that we read farther now, and they took two of the dogs. Luckily, they were not Moon and Squirrel. Moon and Squirrel had ran away, but now the truck has been coming, or the van had been coming multiple days in a row. So it's like Moon and Squirrel can't even get the food because they come right out whenever the food gets placed down, because that's when they know dogs are going to come out. But the other dogs aren't as smart as Moon and Squirrel, so... oh, it just isn't closing. Hang on. Okay, so, it's kind of a little bit sad because now Moon and Squirrel can't get the food because they know that the van guys are always going to be there trying to catch dogs. And basically, yeah. So my question is, they have caught 2 dogs so far. It was the night before, so next day they're trying to catch more dogs. They did not catch Moon and Squirrel yet. So my question is, do you think they're eventually going to catch them? I don't think they'll be able to catch Moon and Squirrel because I know that Moon and Squirrel run as fast as they can, and they're definitely smart. Like, especially Moon, she knows when to leave because she has never really been caught except for in the fight with the other big dogs. And if you haven't seen that, it's kind of in a different video where we talked about it earlier in the book. But I'm wondering if they're actually going to be able to catch Moon and Squirrel. I don't think they will be able to, but what do you think? It's kind of a tough question for me because on one hand, I'm thinking they're pretty smart and they're really fast. They can outrun and they know like all the woods and towns and they can get in there. But on the other hand, I'm
If you're
thinking...
thinking of making a video and you haven't started it yet, please don't start. I'll do a mini lesson early today and then we'll be done. Thank you.
But on the other hand, I'm kind of thinking like, well, they are tiny and they're not very strong. I mean, they are strong, but they're not strong enough to hold back a person. I mean, sure they can bite and bark, and scratch, but they wouldn't be, sure it might start bleeding, but they'd want to get the dogs. They wouldn't care. They'd be like, I'll fix the scratch, get a Band-Aid, clean it up when I'm done, and I get them into their cages at the pound and stuff. So the signpost for this question is what must it be like to be them? And that is actually, I think that it must be pretty scary to be, and in my head when I'm thinking what must it be like to be who, I'm thinking about Moon and Squirrel. In my mind, it must be pretty terrifying because they're not able to get their food because these guys in the van are way too fast. But on the other hand, and not on the other hand, but it's because they just don't kind of, how should I put this? I'm just trying to think about how I should put this. But they also, not on the other hand, because it's not really a different hand, I'm just thinking about the ways that it should be terrifying. They can't get their food because the guys in the van are too fast, but also they have to run a ton because they have to get away from these guys. They don't want to just sit and hide because eventually these guys are just going to start looking for the dogs. So they have to get away, and it must be really tiring for them too. So I know that if I were them, I'd be terrified and nervous, and I'd be looking for food everywhere. And yeah, I'd be really terrified. So that's all. What would you feel if you were them? And that's all. Bye.